So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jared.
I'm Brandon.
And I don't know who Triple H pissed off, but WWE is trying to remove basically anything that has to do with him, especially the very good things in NXT, as we'll talk about that and so much more. The Heel to the Face podcast for this week is on the air.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad Luck would be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So it's been a few minutes since we've been with you, but the Heel to the Face podcast.
It's been a year.
It's been since last year.
Yeah,
it's
the first time back in 2022.
Yes, our first show of 2022. So that means we have had a podcast on the air for
5 years.
I guess we've been in
5 years.
5 years, yes. Okay.
Yes.
With 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21. We've now had podcasts in 6 different years.
Oh.
That's the point. I know, yes. Obviously, I'm one of those people that hates that WrestleMania 25 was called the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania, because it was not. It was just WrestleMania 25.
Yes.
So, yes, we are on our 5-year anniversary coming up pretty soon.
Which is coming up soon. Yeah.
But we have had episodes in the better part of 6 years.
So we got to be up to what? We're getting closing in on like 250 episodes now. This is crazy.
Yeah, I don't count. Sometimes we take some time off. We've had COVID issues like anybody else. But yes, we've been around. We've been consistent. I know there's other podcasts out there that have come and gone. And, regardless amount how many hits or views or listens we get and how exciting it is to do it each and every single week, we still come in here and we still do it regardless.
We just enjoy it. We have a good time. Even before the show every week, we're prepping, we're texting, we're going through stuff, just kind of talking about the news and wrestling, and we want to bring it to you.
And all the crazy stuff that took place since we last saw you. We did our day one predictions.
Yeah.
We did our predictions for Hangman Page and Daniel Bryan 2, or Bryan Danielson 2 in AEW and outside of WWE terms. So we did all of that, and there's a lot to talk about. I guess we'll talk about, obviously, the week leading up to day one. We were not on the air, but it's pretty good because even WWE's perspective, they weren't doing much either. Everybody seemed to be out for COVID reasons. They were running house shows that had horrible attendance and horrible cards. I read a lot of the house show cards they were doing post-Christmas week, and you got
good.
You got to see some double dipping. It's kind of funny because a couple weeks ago, I went to a house show right before Survivor Series here in Syracuse, and I got to say it was one of the best house shows I've ever been to. You had Roman Reigns. You had Drew McIntyre. You had the tag champs. You had Becky. You had all the names in WWE.
You had the stars. Yep.
You had all the stars. Finn Balor, you name it. Kevin Owens, you got it. Not so much if you went to a house show post-Christmas. You got Drew McIntyre in a tag team match to start the show. You got Drew McIntyre in the main event to end the show.
Man,
you got a lot of double dipping. Obviously there was no Roman Reigns.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And I want to tie that. We're going to tie it in a little bit further here in a minute. But I did like what Paul Heyman said this past week on cutting a promo with Brock Lesnar, obviously in the picture as well. About, man, I leave your side and you get COVID. That was an interesting play. I wasn't sure how that was going to play out because you know how the mainstream media is these days with COVID. So I thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious. I think watching Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman, it's different now. It's not just Paul Heyman talking. Brock actually has a voice, so it's good. We'll get to that in a minute.
So on I believe it was Christmas Eve is when Paul Heyman got fired from Roman Reigns officially, and then the night after day one, he rejoined Brock Lesnar. Day one, obviously, if you've been living under a rock, Roman did not compete at day one with his Universal Championship on the line. Brock was thrown into the Fatal 4-Way, which made it a Fatal 5-Way. And did what I didn't expect to happen. I thought he would have not been involved in the pin, mainly because you have these storylines all set up, meaning you have already the winner for this Fatal 4-Way and what's going to happen with the Royal Rumble and what's going to happen with WrestleMania. You have that already predicted down the line with Brock facing Roman. So I figured with this being a last-minute addition, that would still not change. That Brock would be in the match because you want the star power because this is a pay-per-view event, and you did have a full crowd, a sold-out crowd down there. Atlanta tickets were going for $120+ on the third market.
It wasn't a cheap ticket.
You didn't want to not have, the star power you promised. Yes, you can't have Roman Reigns, but if you flew in Brock Lesnar from Saskatchewan, you want him to be on the card. You paid him all that money. I didn't think though he was going to be involved in the pin, and little to my knowledge, there he becomes the world champ.
I don't know if WWE was intentionally kind of tipping their hand on things, but I got this. I noticed, in NXT this week, they unified a championship for the North American Cruiserweight.
We talked about that, getting rid of the Cruiserweight belt a while ago in the 205 Live show, and they essentially did that.
Yeah, it's long overdue. But what I'm thinking is, as things are kind of evolving, Roman Reigns just got cleared as of, a little bit before the show today, this afternoon. He got officially cleared, past his protocols for COVID, and now he's going to be on the show for SmackDown this week. But what I'm thinking is, and I could be wrong, this is just my speculation, I think they're going to get done. I think they're going to just say the hell with the brands. I have a feeling they're going to be one unit again in the near future.
They've gone back and forth so many different times.
Why not unify the championship?
I mean, people have said that as well, that it could be Brock versus Roman for unified championships, which would be yet another reason why WrestleMania doesn't need to be 2 nights. For sure. Because, again, I guess the thing is, too, and we saw it this week with Wrestle Kingdom. If you didn't pay attention to Wrestle Kingdom, you're not alone. A lot of people didn't. And it stinks because a couple of years ago, it, reached its peak. I got a lot of people over here on the Western Hemisphere,
including myself,
to start paying attention to it. And unfortunately, they decided to move to the 2-night motto, and then obviously AEW doesn't help with the talent perspective and with the fact that you move into this 2-night Wrestle Kingdom, but then you have all these COVID issues, which turns it into a card that would, I think, this year and any year be very solid, a very solid card from start to finish. But when you drag it out and you start to make it multiple nights, it makes it difficult. It makes it difficult to watch. And that's one thing, WrestleMania with 2 nights and with Wrestle Kingdom being 2 nights, it doesn't have that rewatchability.
No, and here's the thing, too. I know
because it's too long. Yes, I understand WrestleMania a couple years ago was really long. I get it, 8 hours. But for some reason, one show seems to be much more watchable. I go back and can rewatch WrestleMania 7, but I can't watch WrestleMania 7 week.
Not only because of COVID, because I think you should have one show anyways for COVID. And if you have to pull some stars out, you still got enough talent to make that one night just absolutely fantastic. But in general, even taking COVID out the picture here, you don't need 2 nights. Let's make it one big
and Wrestle Kingdom
show.
Was a example of that. And the crazy thing is they've actually done the 2-night thing now for 3 years, I believe. And one thing in all the years that they've done this is they have noticed that the second night of Wrestle Kingdom has less attendance than the first night.
I wonder why.
And it's crazy to think because the second night essentially is supposed to be more important because it's when, it's like a playoff is night 1 and night 2, you kind of move into the actual finish of the show.
You don't need 2 nights.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that, one big thing for Wrestle Kingdom, the attendance going down, is that they have in the tradition that Wrestle Kingdom, even before it was Wrestle Kingdom, is that in Japan, the January 4th show has always been a tradition. So people tune out and tune in for the the January 4th show.
Yeah.
So when it becomes January 5th and 6th and 7th, they're just
stop dragging it so much.
Yes,
just keep traditions. Do one
and
badass
it would have been
show.
One badass show. Because and that's the thing too. With Wrestle Kingdom in the past, like let's say Jericho and Omega, you had all these feuds that you knew were happening. Now we have it where it's like we don't know what's happening on Wrestle Kingdom night number 2 because you got to wait for the results of Wrestle Kingdom night number 1.
To me, I didn't watch. I didn't catch really any of it. I just kind of skimmed through it, just through the timeline.
Decent main events.
It's to me, it's like matches. It's like having matches for the sake of having matches is really what.
Yeah.
You know me. I've preached it on many of episodes all these years. If there's no storyline, I don't need to have. I don't want to see it. I want to see some build. I want to see a storyline. I want it to culminate at New Japan's equivalent to WrestleMania.
Yes. So, they showed why you shouldn't be 2 nights, have one badass card. They have the roster for one card so you can make sure everybody on that card is legitimate. You don't have to have extras and fill-ins and people we've never heard of because to a lot of Americans, we haven't heard of a lot of people when it comes to New Japan Wrestling. No offense. We've heard of a few, and each year it seems like I've heard of less and less as they make their way to the States and AEW and WWE.
Well, AEW is really, I think AEW has kind of hurt that product. I think you see a lot of these Japan wrestlers that they're over here now. So that's, they're over here. They're not in WWE
Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho main evented New Japan a couple years ago. That obviously would main event AEW nowadays.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're AEW. You got guys like, just for example, Lance Archer. He was a big name in Japan. He's here. There's a long list of superstars. AEW is
So now
AEW's
more
done
than
that.
ever, they need to have one show.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
Yeah, and instead of dragging it out, they don't have too many people in my eyes.
But I will say, and I this is maybe not the model, like the model that that New Japan should do or should take, is there's a lot of talent that's out there right now with the Ring of Honors of the world. Now technically for now they're defunct at this point. We'll just keep it that for temporarily maybe. But you also have a lot of releases, which I know we're going to get to the releases here in WWE in just a minute.
Well, the releases in WWE, we had one talent release over the break, which seemed to be something that was asked for. And then obviously the NXT releases that are mostly from the coaching perspective. And we'll definitely talk about those in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But
you can get all these talents in New Japan. If you're really looking to get a two night show, then maybe you need to dip into the pool of the former Ring of Honor, former WWE. Maybe as much as you don't want to, do it. If you're trying to get 2 nights, do it.
I don't even know what the real reason is for wanting to do 2 nights as we move into WWE. And now obviously we're in the first of the year. We're on the road to WrestleMania, essentially, where they're going to have 2 nights, and you're talking about unification of the titles. That could potentially happen. A lot of people have said Roman versus Brock at WrestleMania could be for the unification of the titles.
Yeah.
We were talking off air, and as I am very excited to see Bobby versus Brock. I do wish we waited till WrestleMania to get it.
It's a dream match for me, too.
Because WWE has this infatuation with Roman Reigns and Brock, and it's a great match. I would have liked to see it at day one. It would have been great. But now that we've had this audible where we moved Brock into the Raw picture, and he's the WWE Champion, I think this is a great refresher to say, you know what, we've seen Roman and Brock enough. And the fact that we're not going to get it is not awful. Now that we're going to get Bobby and Brock instead, which I would like to see at WrestleMania, and I'd like to see a storyline going forward.
Sure.
I think that's a refresher, and I think maybe Roman Reigns now moves on to something else because, Brock Lesnar's occupied. That's the thing. Brock Lesnar was always wanting Roman Reigns, and even when he wasn't there, you always knew when he came back, he'd go right for Roman Reigns. So it's nice to kind of get him occupied a little bit. Maybe set up Roman and Brock for SummerSlam. Just there's no rush on any of these.
I will say this, though. With having Brock and Bobby in a fatal 5-way match together, the way they built that, like WWE, I got to give them credit for that. They built it the right way where there was enough contact, but wasn't too much contact, so you can't say, oh, they've really been in the ring. Like, his back was turned or his back was turned. It wasn't like, oh, wait till we face to face. It was the way they built it, and obviously the way they're building Bobby Lashley right now. I would love to see it at WrestleMania, but obviously I don't think that's going to be.
Yeah, I would have been fine with seeing Big E versus Brock at the Rumble.
Yeah,
because it's funny that Nick Khan actually said with day one happening and having such big matches, a lot of people were kind of questioning what's the point of having these huge big matches with Brock and Bobby and Roman, prior to the Royal Rumble, and he was essentially saying that the Royal Rumble was going to kind of stand on its own. Meaning before Royal Rumble was like a WrestleMania Junior. It had WrestleMania-style matches with the Rumble. Now we were going to have more or less like backlash matches with the Rumble.
Yeah.
So I would be fine. So, and I was actually then, okay, so we don't need Brock versus Bobby at the Royal Rumble. I think Brock versus Big E at the Royal Rumble is just fine.
Yeah.
To get the rematch there, have them win, and then have them face down at WrestleMania.
Well, of
and
course.
Then Roman, there's so many endless opportunities now that Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, maybe move them over to SmackDown, get them back involved.
Well, here's the thing. Big E actually they put Big E over in that promo on Raw this past week. They were like, we have all the respect in the world. Brock does, I do. Like, Paul Heyman was saying
because Brock's a face now.
But here's the thing. They went out of their way to put him over. So to me, like you said, Big E and Brock would have been fun. And then you can have Bobby and Brock Lesnar. You could save it for the main show for Mania. That would have been cool.
And I think one cool thing they could have done is they could have had maybe Big E lose, but then maybe Big E wins the Rumble, and you think, all right, he's going to go for the rematch against Brock, and then pulls it out on Roman.
Yeah,
and then it's Roman and Big E at WrestleMania for one title. And because they just put on, I think, a pretty decent match of Survivor Series when it was champ versus champ.
Yeah, I thought it was a solid match.
So you could have that, and then you could have Bobby and Brock. And again, if we're going to have, because it looks pretty much like we're going to have Roman versus Brock, whether it's champ versus champ or what have you, either way, like, it shows that's why we don't really need 2 nights of WrestleMania. I think that's a solid, if it's a unification match and we're going to bring the titles back together here, we don't need 2-night WrestleMania. We need just one solid night of WrestleMania. It was kind of funny because Stephanie McMahon actually posted a picture of there was some Twitter that said put out your favorite sports shot in your camera feed or whatever, and she put WrestleMania 32 picture, like an overhead shot of the stadium full. And she said, I can't wait to do this again in 88 days. That's how long it is till WrestleMania in Dallas. And she put the WrestleMania AT&T Stadium before. And I looked at the picture and I say, I really hope that it looks like this again. Because, with it being 2 nights, what, are we going to get? I know, whether you want to say it was really 100,000 or 100,000 paid or what have you, that place was full. It was a full AT&T Stadium.
For sure.
And obviously last year was the first 2 night in front of crowd, but they couldn't let in a full crowd anyways, so we wouldn't know what last year's WrestleMania would have looked like if they could have tried to sell out Raymond James 2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
I wonder if they would have gotten 70,000 a night. I wonder, because, it's 2 nights. And you're dividing up a lot of the tickets. That's the thing. When you buy tickets for WrestleMania, you don't just have the option to buy 2 nights. It's not just here's your tickets, it's good for 2 nights. They're selling them individually, and there's people buying them individually. And when I went to WrestleMania this past year, the person sitting next to me one night was not the person sitting next to me the next night. So you just wonder, how many of these people are kind of like mixing and matching here. And you wonder, with that being said and it not being...
How's it going to affect the attendance?
Yeah. And sure, overall, they're probably drawing... Either way, they're going to sell 100,000 tickets to WrestleMania. Either way, total. Regardless, there's going to be 100,000. But is that 45,000 one night and 60,000 the next? That's the issues we're having here. And that's what I wonder. Obviously, they still have WrestleMania tickets for sale. Lots of them for both nights.
You can make one massive 6-hour show and make it worth the fans paying in attendance.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And believe me,
I'm
against. I get it. WrestleMania New York City ruined that whole thing. People think it was way too long, and I'm with you. It was too long, but I don't think this is the answer. And obviously, if we have this championship unification match, it shows. Because one night is not going to have a championship match if that's the case. One night is going to have no men's championship. You're going to pay for a ticket to WrestleMania, and Brock and Roman are not going to be on your card.
Yeah, I don't like it. I think it's just I think WWE might want to review that model.
Well, unfortunately, though, there's a few things they are reviewing, and that is NXT, and they're reviewing it in a very bad way. Obviously, we've been talking about the retooling of NXT for some time now, the NXT 2.0, where they're bringing in all sorts of new people, phasing out essentially all the black and gold. And now they're doing it with the coaching staff as well. And I alluded to in the teaser of what did Triple H do to piss some people off, because essentially that's what they're doing. Anybody who Triple H hired is being removed.
And there was 2 big
names. I wonder what Triple H has to think about this. Obviously, he's out. He's been recovering lately for the issues that he's been having health-wise. But William Regal, nobody is having anything bad to say about William Regal. Everybody is literally saying that if it wasn't for William Regal, they wouldn't be there where they are.
And here's the thing. WWE screwed that one up, because if I'm Tony Khan, as soon as I find that out, I'm calling him up and saying, "Hey, what can I get work? Let's make a deal." Any wrestling promotion should be on the phone with William Regal and say, "What's your price?" Because that's just how good he's a visionary. He sees things. He's brought all this talent to the lens of of WWE universe these days. And some of the UK talent. He has those connections. Where guess what, WWE? Maybe you just lost your best set of eyes for the UK brand.
But again, I don't think right now Vince probably cares, because he is going somewhere with NXT that is where he is going with it. I don't know what his end goal is. I don't know what he wants, because of the fact that this was the hottest brand in wrestling. I mean, the fact that it was going up against AEW, and before AEW, I mean, it was just running away with popularity. AEW obviously hurt that a little bit, but either way, they held their own. Not to say that they won or lost or whatever.
It was pretty close no matter what. Whatever the BS demographics are,
they were holding their own.
Yeah.
And the takeover events were hotter tickets than the Royal Rumbles were, than the WrestleManias were.
Yeah.
I went to the takeover Royal Rumble weekend. That arena was sold out. I went to the Raw like 2 nights later in that same arena. Not even half that crowd. WrestleMania weekend, the Barclays Center, sold out. WrestleMania weekend, New Orleans, sold out.
I don't get it. I really don't get what WWE's doing. I don't get what the model is, because here's the thing. You don't think a lot of these superstars that have left NXT to go to the main the main competition, AEW, you don't think they saw the writing on the wall and saying, well, we're either gonna be here and get our contract and then get fired, or
oh no, they definitely are seeing the writing on the wall that NXT is essentially saying, if you were part of this old NXT,
you're gone.
You're not really welcome here anymore. I mean, William Regal, Road Dogg.
Yeah, and
Timothy Thatcher, everybody.
Yeah, Road Dogg's brother Scott Armstrong. Yeah. He was also let go. And then you also have Danny Burch was also out there, and then one of the members of Diamond Mine, not Roderick Strong, thankfully. At least they didn't do that. I mean, Roderick Strong was the champion up until this past week.
Now that he's not the champion, I wonder how long till Roderick Strong's out of there.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's probably a Triple H guy. It's like, I want to know what the hell's going on. Like, what did Triple H do to get all of his guys out? So who's next? HBK?
It just doesn't make any sense because of the fact that they took this product. So earlier this week, there was a podcast. Freddie Prinze Jr., a former writer, obviously you know him as an actor, but former writer for WWE, had a podcast this past week. He was talking with Macaulay Culkin, and they were essentially saying what everyone says. NXT went from the coolest thing overnight to dead. Like overnight.
Yeah.
The NXT 2.0 thing wasn't like a slow decline of like, I don't really like this. And it's like they literally tried to kill it overnight. I know you were the NXT. You were the expert here for NXT. You watched it religiously every single week.
I barely watch it now.
Yes. And while New Year's Evil was good, great. It had some good matches. I enjoyed it. I wonder I just don't know what they're doing because it wasn't broken. Obviously, WWE right now, there's a lot of things that are broken. There's a lot of things you want to fix.
How do you not see ticket sales? How do you not see ticket sales? Like you mentioned, you were there.
They were the best ticket sales in WWE, I would venture to say. Obviously, they didn't travel outside of the takeovers. Each week they were at the Performance Center or whatever. The takeovers, though, sold out. The takeovers were full every time
and they were the best show of the weekend.
They were the best show of the weekend every weekend. So I don't understand what they're looking at because we've talked about this, and I can't deny you in saying that WWE is looking at a sale. They're looking like they're going to be for sale. Freddie Prinze Jr. on the podcast brought up that somebody from Fox came up to him while he was a writer and talked to him and mentioned essentially that WWE put themselves up for sale to Fox during the SmackDown deal, but the price was too high. But the question I have is, why would anybody want to buy WWE?
I mean, WWE is mainstream. It's mainstream. But if you can get it for the right price, why not?
Well, the reason I say this is because of the things that they're doing that are very boneheaded, whether it be from the main roster perspective or the NXT perspective.
There's a reason.
The attendances are going down. What WWE's most valuable asset is right now is the TV deals. If you buy them, you're taking all the TV time. You're not, in getting involved in the TV aspect. You own the TV aspect.
Yeah,
from that aspect, if let's say, they paid $1 billion for SmackDown. Let's say they pay $3 billion to own the company. That's $1 billion for Raw, $1 billion for SmackDown, and then $1 billion to just own the whole thing.
Sure.
Where are you making your other $1 billion? Because if you do what you're doing now, you're just keeping the status quo. Where the money is that, let's say, Fox isn't getting right now, or that USA isn't getting right now, is in the ticket sales. That's where WWE is currently making their money. If they don't do better when it comes to their product and they still have slumping ticket sales, because they do, obviously Day One was an exception. Raws and house shows are struggling. NXT, obviously, we don't know what they'd look like if they tried doing a takeover in front of people again. If they would draw 20,000 at Barclays Center, we don't know. But again, essentially, yes, USA doesn't get in on the ticket sales. Fox doesn't get in on the ticket sales. So if you bought the company, you currently have in on the TV deals because, you have in on the, so if Fox bought it or Peacock, NBC bought it, you would want the ticket sales to go up.
That what you mentioned about Fox being approached by WWE, WWE has had to have had these conversations behind closed doors to different groups, different networks, just different other billionaires. I don't know. And maybe the advice that these groups or entities, so to speak, said to them is, cut your fat. You got too much fat. I'm just saying, everything that you're seeing, as much as it sounds bad that, the ratings aren't really great. We've lost a lot of talent. We're cutting salaries. We're firing people. At the end of the day, WWE is a publicly traded on the stock. They're publicly traded on the stock exchange, so they have a right to give their stockholders money. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. They're running a different business model than AEW. So as much as it gets a little screwy from our perspective, they're obviously someone's pulling the strings behind, behind the scenes making these. There's going to be a deal, I think. Don't be surprised if there's a deal in the next year or two. It's just, I've been saying it for the last year or so. I like the way they're doing things. That tells me they're cutting fat, which means they're tightening the ship a little bit and making it more presentable to potential buyers. And yes, I get maybe the revenue stream is down. Maybe they want to maybe these potential buyers are saying this is if you want us to buy this company, this is what we want. This is how we want it done. And maybe there's some deals that are being brokered behind scenes that we don't know, because who really knows? Only the people that are in that room. So to me, everything that I'm seeing and reading and just what I'm, being in the financial realm that I've been in, there's doing something that tells me a sale is coming.
I wonder what Shane and Triple H and everyone think. Obviously, I wonder what
I
wonder
very
much.
Triple H. What the hell's
I
going on
wonder
there?
what he thinks about this whole NXT thing. I mean, that seems like a slap in the face.
I mean,
To do what they're doing to NXT seems like a slap in the face to Triple H.
Are they going to make? Are they like? My thing is, if they're doing all this stuff that involves Triple H guys and gals, so to speak, what does that mean for Triple H? Are we going to see something in 2022 that it's going to break the internet? Where Triple H just got fired by his father-in-law.
I could see that, and as much as that's crazy to think. I mean, everything we've seen, nothing is off the table.
No, I mean, WWE's going.
Somebody
bad.
put out a tweet earlier this week that kind of laughed and joked. That said, like, hey Vince, how attached are you to this Stephanie, anyways? Like, could she be gone? Like,
I mean, that's the thing. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, I to me, it's just everything that I'm just seeing with my eyes and just the moves they're making. A sale's coming. It's
as a fan,
it's crazy.
Is there anyone? Would you like them to be sold versus not being sold?
Yes, I would like them to be sold, but I'd like them to be sold to somebody who actually loves the product, loves the history of WWE. So they're going to maintain the history side of WWE.
You know what would have been awesome if a couple of years, if AEW never came about and Tony Khan bought WWE back in the day.
That's what I was just thinking. That would have been
the
sweet.
best. Because then you would have had Tony Khan's wrestling mentality, which he's doing with AEW,
with lots of money,
with all the WWE brand. You would essentially have all or nothing. That WrestleMania would be all or nothing.
Yeah, no,
so you would have, because that's the thing. That's what AEW doesn't have. That is the thing that is keeping down AEW. That's the thing that kept down Impact Wrestling. That's the thing that kept down WCW to an extent.
Yes, it is.
That you don't have the name recognition. You don't have Hulk Hogan. You have the Hulkster. You don't have
John Cena.
You don't have WrestleMania. You have Spring Stampede. You don't have the Royal Rumble. You don't have SummerSlam. You don't have these big brands. Why did I pay all sorts of money to go to WrestleMania? For all I know is it's going to be a circus act when I get there. There's no matches announced. There's no guarantee when I go to WrestleMania that I'm going to. There's no guarantee when I go to the Royal Rumble I'm getting a 30-man Royal Rumble until they give it to me.
So here's what I'll just say. This is kind of like my tongue-in-cheek sales pitch to all the billionaires out there. Hey, if you're a big WWE fan and you have a lot of money, make your offer today, because WWE might be yours at the right price.
I guess the issue is, though, like anything that scares you, is that when it gets sold, just like any sports team, is when it gets sold, all of a sudden then it becomes very uncertain. When it's not Vince McMahon's product anymore, all of a sudden these new people that are around, obviously Tony Khan would be much different, but the NBCs, the Foxes, how much do they like the name WrestleManias?
Yeah.
How much are they attached to the Royal Rumble? Let's try something different. You never know. I feel like having the Vinces, the Triple H's there, especially I feel like the Triple H's there. They probably talked Vince out of some of the things. We obviously saw him getting talked out of dropping Survivor Series about 10 years ago. Other pay-per-views, they dropped the King of the Ring many times.
Can I throw a name out there that I think it's gonna blow your mind? Of course, it's gonna be. You're gonna call me a homer for it, but Jerry Jones, he is one of the best businessmen on the planet. He's made the NFL what it is today. He's one of the top sales guys. He's an entertainer. As a Cowboys fan, I've been to that stadium, and there's nothing like going to a football game, not only in Texas in general, but at Jerry's Palace. And here's the thing. You don't think Vince and Jerry are on that same level? Those guys, I'm sure, have had those conversations. I mean, how do you get WrestleMania to go to Cowboys Stadium or AT&T Stadium without Jerry Jones' seal of approval.
Well, no, obviously. And
I'm just saying, that'd be cool.
I know Jerry Jones is I feel like whoever buys WWE, it's not going to be a single entity. It's going to be a company. It's going to be an NBC. It's going to be a Fox. It's going to be a Disney.
Not necessarily if you got enough money.
Well, yes, if you have enough money.
If you got Elon Musk money or Jeff Bezos money, you could buy whatever the hell you want.
That is true. I wish I had the money so I could buy WWE right now and stop all this nonsense. I would just buy it to just maintain the status quo as a fan.
Yeah, he changed the WWE. The Wicks Wrestling Entertainment.
I would not do any of that stuff. I would actually do the opposite. I would make it. I would literally say, keep writing the stories. I'm not going to go out here and say I'm the greatest story writer or anything like that. I would just make sure that the brands stay intact. That the WrestleMania stays WrestleMania.
So no
SummerSlams. And
so no Wicks Wrestling Entertainment.
Raw
like that?
Goes back to 2 hours on Monday nights. Just basically clean that stuff up. And obviously, when you wonder the Jerry Jones of the world or anybody buys it, obviously they don't have that attachment. They don't have that, I always watch Monday Night Raw. He doesn't watch Monday Night Raw.
Jerry Jones is watching Monday Night Football.
So he doesn't have the romantic view of a 2-hour Monday Night Raw back in the 90s or any of that stuff. He doesn't have those opinions. So he only has what's going to make me some money. So all I care about is whoever buys it cares about the product. So essentially, I would say that means I gotta say Disney. I mean, let's see. Yeah, they made Pirates of the Caribbean.
I said Disney.
I would like Disney to be out.
I know. I've said Disney.
That's too risky as a fan to have Disney own it.
Be kind of scary, wouldn't it?
It would be scary.
You'd be associated with Little Mermaid,
It would just be a little scary because they don't have really. I mean, other than Pirates of the Caribbean, which was like their first PG-13 movie, they're not really known
they're more
for anything.
Kid friendly.
Yeah, so I would more like an NBC Universal or a Fox if I had to pick.
I would love Fox. Honestly, I think Fox has taken chances over the years. I mean, look what they did for the NFL. Like they came out of nowhere.
Fox would be somebody to be okay with it being a TV-14 product.
Well, here's the thing: they came out of nowhere, and look what they've done with the People thought they were crazy for Fox and NFL. That'll never work. And look at all these years later, they made it work. So if any entity could do it, Fox can definitely do it.
Speaking of things at work, we'll move on to AEW. We saw this past weekend. Yeah. Hangman Adam Page retained his championship. Didn't need the judges' decision. They had Mark Henry, Big Show, and Jerry Lynn as the judges, but didn't need them. After about 35 minutes, another, I think maybe even a better match this time around. Hangman Page beats Bryan Danielson, retains the championship. Again, to kick off the show. What another great way to kick off the show.
I know we're only a week in, but I guess that's the 2022 match of the year already. So
yeah, I mean, definitely. I got to say that's pretty close to the match of the year. I mean, New Year's Evil had some good matches. The championship match was pretty good with Braun Breaker winning the belt.
Yeah, but let's be honest. Hangman and Danielson, that was money. I mean, from top to bottom, though, I will say, I think New Year's Evil was better from top to bottom. Because aside from that, what's his name, Von
Wagner?
Von Wagner. That thing was weird. I don't know. I just, to me.
Yeah, we didn't get AJ versus Grayson Waller. I thought we were going to get that match. We're getting the hype for that match, which should be, I think, next week.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Carmelo Hayes and Roddy Strong, that was a hell of a match. I mean, the women did a great job, even though Raquel didn't win, which I'm very disappointed about. But she didn't get pinned. She wasn't in the 1, 2, 3, so to speak.
How quick are they going to get rid of Mandy Rose since she has been just doing great down there? She's been more like the black and gold. She is kind of like that throwback to the black and gold NXT where you go down there, you retool, you get that edge, and she's doing great down there. I love her in NXT way more than I like her on the main roster.
I think they need to keep her in NXT for a while because she's doing her best work in WWE for sure, but you don't want to push it too soon. And speaking of the new NXT 2.0, looks like we're going to have Walter coming in very soon here. So Walter
was there for the 6-man tag with Matt Riddle, and it was a great match as well.
But officially, he's going to be on the NXT 2.0 roster, which means he's saying farewell to NXT UK. So and I got to tell you, what NXT 2.0, I will give them a little bit of credit. They have given a little bit of the AJ Styles and Matt Riddle rub. So I see that. That's been pretty good. I enjoyed New Year's Evil from top to bottom better. AEW had the best match for sure, which is Danielson and Page. But from top to bottom, AEW was a decent show. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not trashing it. There were some good segments, but there was also some other segments that, I mean, and speaking of that, you had a crazy spot where Ray Phoenix his arm went the wrong way.
Yeah, that reminded me of Sid Justice back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when essentially I think that's one of the last times we've seen Sid Justice in a major wrestling match. I know he's made some appearances on Raw and such since, but obviously essentially his career-ending injury when he jumped off the top rope. If you haven't seen that, I think it was WCW Sin, 2000, if I'm not mistaken. Go check it out or just look up Sid Vicious, ouch, on YouTube, and you'll
find it.
He'll jump. You see him jumping off the top rope, and ouch. That's all I can say. And that's what the Ray Phoenix thing looked like.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. The
good news, it's only dislocated.
Yeah, he dislocated it. No breaks. I mean, I was reading that before we got on the air tonight. So I was very pleased to see that, because when you see a body part go away, it's not supposed to go. You're like, oh man, this guy's gonna be out for a while. Doesn't look like it's gonna be a long-term deal.
The highlight of my week, I think, was CM Punk saying to MJF, what we pretty much say here without saying it. He said, MJF, if you want to go somewhere else, if you think the grass is greener on the other side, go ahead and you can main event night 4 of a multi-night extravaganza and then find yourself getting fired.
Oh, actually,
let me do this more justice. Night 4 of a multi-night extravaganza, part of a buy one get one free ticket deal, and then you can find yourself getting fired.
And
shot at WWE.
And to all the fans out there, the new premium live event on a Saturday night just makes me think of, what are you watching, Pornhub?
Yes, I mean,
I'm just saying.
I get it. No, and I get it. A lot of people were saying, it hasn't been pay-per-view for quite a while. And yes, even though you don't know, it is still pay-per-view in some parts of the world. It is actually still pay-per-view. But the name is we just have that, nostalgia. I get it. We understand it's not pay-per-view.
You're still paying, though.
To be honest with you, it's actually better known as pay-per-view, because then it feels like you're giving me something. You know what I mean? If you give me if you give me a Taurus and you call it a Ferrari, I feel like I got a Ferrari because it's got the name. I mean, we look at this Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam. The reason those names are the way that they are is because they want to keep those brands. They want to keep the importance. Even if the SummerSlam card is a Backlash card or a No Way Out card, it's got the name on it. So when you put pay-per-view under something, I'm not paying for the pay-per-view. So it makes me feel like I'm getting something. It makes me feel like the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, but I'm getting it for $9.99. What a deal. Now I don't feel like I'm getting a deal on a pay-per-view because you're no longer saying it's a pay-per-view.
So how would this go on a Saturday night when you're talking to your friends hey, so what are you doing? I'm watching a premium live event. What is that? That doesn't come off real well, does it? It kind of seems like, so you're spending your Saturday night watching the old Spice Channel from back in the day, or the old
I think the reason they're doing this is to get more hype on their live events, so that when you go to a house show, they call it a live event. So you feel like, oh boy, a pay-per-view is only just a premium version of a house show.
Just a little bit better, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And the attendance is just a little bit better, too.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going for there. I think that's a dumb name. And just like everything else, if you're a Syracuse person, we still call it Carousel Mall.
Damn right we do.
We still call it. We still call it the Syracuse Chiefs. We still call everything.
Well, we know you're always going to call it the Syracuse Chiefs.
That's unrelated.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah. So regardless of I'm still going to call it pay-per-view.
Me too.
Because outside of wrestling, no one's even going to understand what a premium live event even means.
No, because then your friends are just going to look at you like, what are you doing on Saturday nights?
Yeah. So we're going to still keep calling it a pay-per-view event.
You got it. Yep.
So the Royal Rumble pay-per-view event, it's coming up sooner than you know, and we'll talk that and so much more next week. For Brandon, I'm Jared. This has been another edition of the Heel to Face podcast, and we will talk to you next time.